Christian addiction. With word associations. Alice equals angel. Rome, along with all civilization, was not built in a day, but over the course of time. The cement foundations of Rome are known to be built upon layers and layers of past foundations, past civilizations, past communications and past languages. Now, with all that is known and understood, the big questions still seem left unanswered. Religion seems to have failed all understanding, and, even through faith, what was understood as a child, the logical brain will now not accept. If a belief requires accepting something unbelievable, how can it be known as truth? Remember, the only way to control someone is to lie to them. Now, let us go down the rabbit hole of existence. Through one path, may many paths be found, leading directly back to the path of origin. Follow, with me, as we transgress through time and enjoy a reading of what could have been, what could be, and what may come. This may be a fiction, and non-fictional, understanding, through study and personal experience. These are solely beliefs and expressions of math, symbolism, English and Spanish brought about through a journey that first required suffering through a childhood with largely opposing degrees of loneliness and happiness. Only once love, and existence, were understood, as fractured, or possibly shattered, did the world make sense, because this place feels broken. The state of being hopeless seemed only inevitable, and, if hope lies in forgiveness and a promise of what is to come, then where can one find this promise? Does the oldest written language holding math, pictographs and symbolism, tell an origin story that is scribed from a designer, who created a clear picture of reality? Is emotional energy real? Poor communication is when one hears another incorrectly, or one misspeaks, but the brain does not hear what the mouth exactly said. This can be as simple as calling a family member by the wrong name. Usually an individual hears this mistake, and corrects it. But what if the mistake is made and the inner ear does not hear? Or, when levels of emotional energy begin to heighten, and a miscommunication occurs between two individuals, what is happening? What is the multiverse, and how is it equivalent to the power of human choice? When the emotion is building, and becomes felt, almost tangible, each view and opinion is unseen, unagreeable, and each are demanding control. Even issues from the past may suddenly be brought to another's attention in the ensuing argument. It is as if they are living in different universes, colliding into one another as invisible, but powerful, forces. This is especially apparent, because of the palpability felt, the tension, one can feel, between the two subjects' universes. Quickly the room fills with this presence, smelled from a sixth sense. Craziness is about to ensue from one or both individual parties. Why? Think of reality as changing when each new choice is made. Each decision leads to a different place or path. In science, each new place a choice takes one is one universe among many potential or theoretical universes. The physical place shared currently is because of a chaotic series of actions led into a chaotic series of consequences. Chaos equals inability to recognize the design. Design equals a sign, or signage, signature, nature's sig, or S-I-G, which will be explained in part 2 or 3. These consequences, from action, mix and mingle and integrate with all other consequences of action, giving the reality we know today, which, once again, science has coined as the multiverse. Science states reality is splitting seamlessly and infinitely from what is now to what becomes now, the future. So, could it be agreed, the future is a multitude of different options, coming available based on an immeasurable, insurmountable number of variables, called choices? When actions are, or are not, chosen, the multiverse splits from what could be, to what is decided. Based on what options become available, the new, potential universes of the multiverse show themselves to the experiencers. Life is experienced as personal realities, all combined. All equals law. Say a human chooses to jump from a bridge. Say the same human also chooses not to. There are two consequences for each scenario. Each of these choices leads the individual onto two different life paths, which can and will affect and effect other individuals, like, say the same individual when choosing to jump off the building lands on someone below, crushing the body below. This choice not only affects the one who chose it, but the other who have gone as well. The body, before being hit, thought it was living life as an individual self, and has now become a part of another universe, unintentionally mixed in a shared experience of crippling force. This is the shared multiverse experience, while living in each's own subjective reality. Before a subjective reality can be known, what is self? For the sake of argument, here are Freud's understandings of the id-ego and super-ego, made into word associations. Super-ego equals positive consciousness. E-G-O equals negative consciousness. I-D equals subliminal consciousness. As all life, including humans, take each choice and act upon will, with effort, made in any direction, through a possibly infinite number of choices during a lifetime, this becomes the chosen destiny of the self through time. Once thoughts are understood, choices can be made, and based on the will of the individual self will act upon this action, previously referred to as conscience or conscience. The two conscious forms of self, both positive and negative, lead part of one towards self's destined path, the other part follows the shadow's paths, rather than light. To jump back in to where we were, the jumper's universe, who wholly decides not to jump, ends up in a much different place than the same jumper who would have jumped. There is no arguing it. This is called truth. When a human has a subjective reality, the truths are only perceived truths, called beliefs. Personal beliefs can be called trusted, but are difficult to understand as knowledge to others, unless one is convinced. Truth equals no. Subjective reality equals personal universe. Multiverse equals consequences of choice. Con equals with. Vince equals vice. Convince equals with vice, or vice, stuck between, not one, but two. Two, what? Ever see that movie, about a kid and a tiger, stuck on a lifeboat, after the ship sinks? That has to do with this exact idea, and has much better imagery to help understand the forms of self. Is each choice made through critical thinking? If the time, just before deciding any choice inside of self, is critical thinking, then this critically thought out choice creates a totally new universe. Each new choice, one after the other, propels the old universe into a new one, seamlessly stitching all universes of perception into one, traveling through distance, called time. Time distance equals timeline. If time is an unmovable force, and choice is all we have to control destiny, then each choice is on a path towards destiny, viewed as a varying personal universe, made through one's timeline of life. Through 5 or 6 sensory types of data, called senses, the data of sense must pass through the self. This is where the past line of time combines what seems to have been chaos into categorized information, or learning. This state evolution, or memories, are the combo of both logic and emotion, combining the side being the positive force, with the side being the negative force, while using a subliminal innocence to help the trajectory be triangulated. Triangulation equals using 2 points to guess a third. Quadulation equals using 3 points to guess a fourth. Life, organized, equals organ, ism. Ism equals live, or, I-S-M, equals, L-I-F. All living beings, and subsequent destinies, make up the ever-expanding multiverse, throughout the line of time. If destiny is the purpose to find, using choices, within time, then destiny is the path of choice, which makes choice the most powerful part of existence. Choice equals freedom. Choices lead down a path. This path is a myriad, or mirage, or combination of all choices at one time. These atoms are the current material reality we are live in today. Destiny equals path through multiverse, found by choosing choices through the path of one's subjective universes, or perceived reality, leading one to a distance, or destiny, yet unknown. End questions and conclusions. Is 1 the sum of all choice made from within? If humans share the same universe in the multiverse, then both parties are consciously agreeing on, and therefore, share the same belief in the perceived reality. Of the two joining universes, each has a unique and free self to sense, understand, and choose actions created through personal choice by all humans and life. A perspective, or view, is shared because both agree on the shared reality. This is no longer a subjective state, or subjective view, but a shared view. State equals view. 50 states equals 50 different views on life, love, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So the universe is a multiverse, and it is shared by all which make choices through time. The self is you only when the two sides of consciousness are understood. A leap can then be made, connecting the subconscious to the two halves of self. How does one heal the past traumas that make holes in subliminal innocence? The inner child is giving a new understanding of reality, which one could call a rebirth, the path to enlightenment and healing. Trauma? What if these two faces of consciousness fight each other, now, currently? Would either know the other exists if self is not understood in you? Are morals the understanding that there is an angel and a demon on either shoulder, or are we both the angel and the demon? If so, is there a third part of spirituality, other than the angel and demon coexisting inside? Is this third part a soul? And if yes, does the pineal gland really have the ability to bring the subconscious into nirvana in this life? Or is there a heaven, once, now's reality, is no more? This battle that ensues inside, what is it? Is it real? Are emotions, feelings, and thoughts real? If so, where do they come from? What if the two sides of self create the depth and feeling of choice? Science says to trust logic and control our emotions. Be neutral, but what if exactly the opposite is meant to be true? What is natural and when is discipline necessary in nature? If we trust our sensory data and emotions, are clues, essentially, to help build sensory data into information. Is the trained idea of critical thinking only an institutional practice, far from the reaches of the king of reason? Is it only heinous criminals who critically think when being interrogated, or is this a form of conditioning endemic in society as a whole? Is it any coincidence this reality feels off? What does one feel can be trusted these days? Are any humans are in the inner circle of all the thoughts, feelings and emotions alive in self? Is individualism the trained idea of disassociation? Or desensitizing? Is judging, when one only sees the positive side of self? Are there holes in the inner child, the communicator, between the two sides of consciousness? What if the inner child is forgotten? Can either side of conscious self clearly communicate to, or understand, the other? What if the inner child is developed until around age 7, then hides from the two developing parts of consciousness, also known as the left and right brain? Would an inner child hide if holes of trauma were being inserted? Simply put, when a person is being ugly, can the person see the self in its true light? What happens if filming self? Can the mirror in one be seen? Does one like what one sees? And if so, is one aware of vanity? Vanity equals ego. After listening and possibly re-listening, how does one feel now?